Welcome to the Beauty of Better podcast, where we help moms thrive in health and faith.
Hi, ladies. Today we are going to talk about movement. We are going to talk about what it is. We're going to share some numbers, some tips, and kind of what it looks like in our home and how to set some goals about that. Some general framework as we're talking and progressing through our conversation today is that a good goal is about 10,000 steps a day. That's a general health recommendation. And if you don't want to go off of steps or track that, about 30 minutes of consecutive walking or even more vigorous than walking movement is also recommended. And that can even be broken into 3 10-minute chunks or 2 15-minute chunks if that's more reasonable. Danielle, can you kind of share maybe why we're created to move?
Yeah, I just feel like our bodies were created to move. We have legs, we have arms, we have joints. And so we're not meant to be sedentary people. And I think we see this with disease prevention as well, where just physical activity in itself prevents so many chronic illnesses, some cancers. And it's just so important for our bodies to be moving. But as moms, it's really hard sometimes. And depending on what seasons we're in, it can be really hard too. And so, with me, with older kids and working at a university and running a nonprofit, I feel like my time is very crunched. And so I have to be so intentional in this season. So I would prefer to walk in the mornings or exercise in the mornings because I'm a morning person, but right now I don't get that. So I actually have to carve out time in my evenings. And I just kind of set up a little home gym in my garage with just like an elliptical and some weights and a bench where it's just like I go in there and I try to get a minimum of a half hour a day. And that's where I feel like I let go of my stress. And it's like even after a long day, a hard day, if I can get in there for even sometimes it's just 20 minutes, it's like, okay, I know my body's going to unwind and de-stress. And I encourage my boys to come out there with me. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
But it's just like making sure that my body gets that movement. And my primary motivation in that is number one, to be strong for my boys. And two, for stress relief. I feel like there are a lot of stressful things right now, and that's where I can kind of release it all. So, Kathleen, I know you've got
Yeah.
youngers. What does movement look like in
Yes.
your home?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, honestly, like I just wanted to speak into for me, exercise has always been like a stress reliever. And the science shows how it, affects cortisol in our bodies. And Christiana, I know you could speak more into that, but so for me, it's definitely kind of a matter of sanity in my motherhood, to be honest. It's stressful. It is stressful having littles, and I mean, my kids are 8, 6, and 2. But it can be a lot. You're navigating a lot as a mom throughout the day. Their different behaviors. You're raising them up into, hopefully healthy, responsible adults. And that's so much pressure a lot of the times to carry. And so to find these spaces where we can work that stress out of our body, for me, I've really found that like I need that space. And so it's not like about taking time apart from your kids. It's like, oh, I actually need this. It's kind of like when the flight stewardesses tell us to like put on our mask before putting it on your child, because if you pass out, your kids aren't going to get what they need. And so for me, movement has really looked about like how can I help alleviate kind of stress and set my day up well so that I can give my best to my kids, because I'm still I only work 2 days a week outside of the home, so those other days are pretty full on in the home with my kids. So for this season, that's what that looks like. So for me, also getting out to the gym, doing an hour session, like it's just not the season for that. And sometimes you can get overwhelmed thinking like, oh, I need to be pounding at the gym and to get results. But honestly, like I found little 20-minute hit workouts for me, like 3 days a week is enough to like help me feel toned and strong. And it just releases that like kind of tension in my body. And I feel like I'm just like, okay, I can be present for my kids and I'm feeling good about myself because I'm like, you're getting that good circulation in your body, you're getting the oxygen to your brain, all the things that just help fuel motherhood. And so whatever that movement looks like for you, I did grow up with I did all the sports and all that, so I do have quite an athletic background. But maybe you didn't have that, maybe that wasn't your upbringing. But movement's still really important. You know, the science just shows how important movement is. So I just want to encourage like all mamas, like no matter what it looks like, maybe you're really social and you miss being outside the home because you're with your kids all the time. Maybe you need to join a mom's group where you like go on walks with your strollers and just get outside, like finding what you need to get some movement and to feel like you restore a sense of like calm to yourself as a mom. I just think is so important. But maybe Christiana, you can speak some into that.
Yeah, no, Kathleen, I like how you talked about movement, but also exercise, because I think when you think about movement, there's definite intensity levels, right? And
Yeah.
so what one person enjoys is going to be different than someone else. And so that's why I think when we say movement in general is really what we want to celebrate and is preventive. And it doesn't always have to be an intense form. And it's good to have variety. You know, we're going to get, if you go too intense, like too much, you can, you know, be prone to different ailments and injuries. So just like food, too much of any one thing
Yeah.
is not a good
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
knowing where you're at and figuring that out helps. I know for me in this season, I'm kind of sandwiched with my kids in between the ages. So my youngest right now is 6 and my oldest is 12. And so for the past 3 years, I wasn't a morning person, but I converted to being a morning person because I realized I wanted some days of the week to have an intense form of exercise. So I'll wake up at 4:45 to go to the gym and work out for about an hour and do a little bit more intense workout a couple of days a week. I celebrate if it's 2 or 3 days a week. Sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less, and that's great. And then because I do love this power of prevention, I want movement to just be a rhythm in our home. And so things that we do, just family walks, or if one kid has a soccer practice, the other ones of us might be walking around or playing with my kids. Just simple things that it's not always choosing to sit in an activity. Sometimes it means like I'm standing or I'm moving, and just showing that can be just a normal thing that we do. Not, you know, I'm not unable to rest because there's definitely moments of rest. So that's why I think it's good to have numbers. I love numbers personally, and those help me stay on track. But it's also to know that flexibility and knowing, hey, my body's just really tired and I need to sit. Or you know what, it's been a stressful day. And I think going and looping my neighborhood, which I know my neighborhood's like 3 laps equal 1 mile, right? So if I could just loop 3 times, you know, that's success.
Yeah. That's so good. I know, and it is also finding these ways to engage our kids, you know, in exercise. You know, I have this watch, and actually when it gets to 10,000 steps, there's like fireworks on it. And my kids are always like, "Are you close to 10,000 steps?" It's like I have to do it because they want to see the fireworks show. And, you know, it's kind of fun, but, you know, it is a good way of like kind of encouraging them of like, okay, yes, mom, we got our goal today. And, you know, so teaching our kids from like early on. And, you know, something too that I've had to learn to embrace is like just the patience too of this season with littles. I was actually encouraged, Christiana, that you're not a morning person, because a lot of the times I don't get my workout done in the morning. And I'm like, sometimes you feel like weak because you see these people on Instagram getting up at like 5 a.m. or earlier. And you're like, they're so dedicated. And then it's like, okay, just give myself a break. You have demands on you all day from little toddlers, and you know that can be a lot. So sometimes I do my workouts when my kids are already awake and the day's started, maybe on a Saturday. Like just recently I had my girls, they were home. So, and once again, they're 8 years old and 6 years old. So we found this little YouTube channel called what's it called, Little Sports, and it's kind of really good exercise that adults and kids can do. But they engaged with it and did that like the whole for the whole workout. I was pretty impressed that they did it. It was like a 30-minute long one, so I was kind of amazed that they did it. But that was a fun way to like just all of us just incorporate in doing the exercise together, because they see mommy doing these like kind of workouts on YouTube, and then they were like, oh, one that we can do. So sometimes just finding like, okay, what are our family rhythms? How can we start bringing them into that? You know, sometimes the ideal is to have our own time, but then also how do we teach our kids how to do more movement in that too? Danielle, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to speak for Kelsey. She's not here. She's at home with a little newborn,
Oh
but
yeah.
she just has great tips and has even made videos on this just around like using household items to create movement. And she has videos where she took laundry detergent and she was doing laundry and she used the laundry detergent as a weight. And so it's like you don't always have to have formal exercise. You don't always have to have a gym. You don't always have to count your steps, but it's just like, how do you move when you're home and how do you incorporate extra movement when you're just doing daily things like laundry that we all have to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that there are just little things that we could all be doing, or, we could park our cars a little further away. I always try to do that at work where I don't park right next to the door, but I make myself walk a little further, or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. And I think that that's probably one of my victory tips is, one time I had a season where I had a very crazy work schedule. I worked on the ninth floor of this building, and I was like, I don't have time to like go for a walk or exercise right now, but I can take the stairs. And so every day, every morning, every evening, even on lunch breaks, I would take those 9 flights of steps, even in heels. Believe it or not, that was a better calf workout. And after that, I was actually able to run a 5K very easily without training for it, just because my legs were so used to taking the stairs, almost like the stairmaster at the gym, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'd be so great if I could hear from you guys just on tips that you have that you've done for yourself, whether it's just movement or exercise or what's working.
Yeah.
Well, I think just one, yeah, I think I shared the tip of kind of knowing the rhythm of the week, printing the calendar and kind of fitting it in for us. So, if I know that, like, you know what, I'm not going to get intense exercise this week, then, we'll say, okay, we're going to have family walks this week, and so after dinner, we're doing our family walks. And that's what we're going to do because, maybe the kids had a lot of homework or I've had more work I needed to tackle or different other responsibilities. And so I think just kind of knowing, like going into the week of, or even just looking at the day and being like, hey, today, I'm going to take a break every hour and get up and move for like 10 minutes, so I'm going to work hard for 50 minutes and then I'll get up and I'll move for 10,
Yeah.
And so just trying to think through that of like, how can I make that work for today? Because I think our workloads vary. And I think there has to be some measure of flexibility because having buffer in a season that's full with work and family is important so that um, you can let interruptions still come in and you can embrace those and try to handle them with grace and patience as much as possible. And so I think having a couple different options has helped me just maintain movement as a rhythm personally and also as a family. So whether it's my watch going off and telling me, hey, you need to hit this number of steps in an hour, or just kind of knowing, hey, I worked hard. I'm going to get up and walk around, maybe connect with someone instead of send them an email. That's kind of some things that I've chosen to do.
I've
Yeah.
seen you have walking meetings too, so I know that
Yeah.
those take place.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Well, yeah, I think having realistic expectations of like each season and how, sometimes that does have to shift and change. And I think we're sometimes so hard on ourselves as moms, like, and so, just know that embracing this message with grace, but also just like, okay, what's like our core kind of theme is like what one step can you take towards becoming better? And like I do often meet with moms around. We have a reservoir right by our house, and I like to just meet there instead of like meeting just in the house, where we're just kind of sitting. And we meet there and do like 1 or 2 laps. Everybody's kind of refreshed by the outdoors. The kids are, we are. I would do that, but also something that I kind of did recently. I had this favorite class that I loved out of the gym, and I was going to the gym for a bit, but it was like a 5:30 a.m. class, and my kids just like went through a season of like being sick and different things, and it was just like really disrupted, and I couldn't really get to the class regularly. And instead of just getting down and just giving it up altogether, I was like, okay, what can I do? And I actually, for $10, I got this like barbell and weights off Facebook Marketplace, and And I found that like a lot of those same class formats are just online, like on YouTube. And so I was like, okay, empowering myself in this moment looks like getting this $10 barbell and just doing the classes from home. So if Jeremiah is like, occupied for half an hour or something, like I can go in the garage. It's not a clean garage, but yet, you know what, you get the job done. And that's what movement can look like, in this season. And I think that's a really big element is like, instead of just being a victim of circumstance, I've definitely been there at times before where it's like, like where you get down about what you can't do. But instead, a growth mindset says, what can I do towards being better today? And finding ways to do that, even if it's just the smallest thing, starting from, maybe really sedentary lifestyle to just doing like 10 minutes a day of walking around your block and starting somewhere and just saying, okay, you know what? No, I can do this. And having that kind of long-term, like, I think I shared this in another podcast. I say it all the time, but it's kind of become a life motto. But my cross country coach always said, life isn't a sprint, it's an endurance event. And it really is. We have that perseverance mindset that like, okay, like just keep going forward, keep moving forward, like don't get stuck. And so, yeah, I just want to encourage the mamas listening out there. You got this. Just, one little step. You got it.
Yes, I just want to echo that, Kathleen. That's so good. I just feel like that's our heart behind all these podcasts is how do we learn from each other, but also how do we learn to have just a little bit more grace for ourselves in these changing seasons and some that are busier than others, and just how do we take one step? And maybe you're a numbers person and you want to track your steps, and maybe you're not a numbers person and you just want to park a little further away and know that you got those extra steps in. And that's okay. Like they're both really great. And so just know that no matter what you do, just get moving, and whatever that is for you, just take one step a little bit further to making that a little bit better, and have grace for yourself and know that there's beauty in this season and you can do it, and we're cheering you on.
Thanks so much for listening to the Beauty of Better podcast.
If you liked today's episode, don't forget to subscribe.
Connect with our community and check out other resources on our website at beautyofbetter.com.
We hope this podcast helped you take the next small step to find the beauty in becoming better.